look at the next term, which is production. Production is typically a term which means that something is happening in typically high volume. Let us look at some of the definitions. So, production is the process of combining various material inputs and immaterial inputs in order to make something for consumption. It is the act of creating an output, a good or service which has value and contributes to the utility of individuals. So, production is a bigger version of manufacturing, where it is not only manufacturing, but it is everything around manufacturing. So, it has to deal with the land in which you have a particular space, it has to deal with the labor, it has to deal with the capital, the enterprise, the other people around. So, whenever we talk about production engineering or production in general, you are not only talking about manufacturing or bulk manufacturing, you are talking about all the aspects around it, right. Let us take a look at the comparison. So, basis of comparison from a meaning standpoint, let us look at this table for a moment. Manufacturing is defined as a process of producing merchandise or any product by using resources such as labor, machines, tools, raw materials, chemicals. So, these are cumulatively known as the manufacturing processes or manufacturing techniques. Production, on the other hand, is the process of making something used for consumption by combining various resources. So, all these resources put together forms the component of production. So, whenever we say we are going to do production, we think about raw materials, we think about labors, we think about the entire protocol and processes, and manufacturing is a subset of this production component, right. So, from a concept standpoint, manufacturing is a process in which raw material is used to generate output. So, you use some raw material and finally get a finished product. So, that is typically what manufacturing is. We have learnt it in additive and subtractive details, right. Production, however, is a process of converting inputs into outputs. So, input can be in so many forms that it is in terms of manpower, somebody is moving the assembly line, the raw materials, everything put together becomes the production, right. So, all the planning and everything, like the management around it, the land, the machines which you have, but manufacturing is only the task of converting a raw material into the finished product. Production is everything around it. What are the compulsory resources for manufacturing? Typically men and machine are typically needed for manufacturing. For production, you are basically looking at men, like, right. So, all the planning and the other technologies which are around it. Manufacturing is typically tangible, which you can touch and feel. Production can be tangible to certain extent, and in certain cases intangible as well. The form of output in from a manufacturing technique is typically a goods or a product, and from production is goods and services. So, sometimes you will come out with based on all the planning, you want to come out with not only goods or products, but along with the services, right. So, if you are trying to work on a product which you are going to mass produce or manufacture, you are basically not only doing manufacturing, you are doing production, right. That is the understanding. So, in terms of creation, you are basically goods that are suitable for use, that is typically what you do from manufacturing. Production is something you are looking from a utility standpoint as a whole. So, as I have explained, manufacturing is a small subset of production, right. Production planning. So, is a pre-production function performed to match the production capacity with the essential market demand in the most feasible manner, right. So, production planning is typically where you look at the market demand. So, let us say I make 100 implants randomly and think of, let me see what the market demand is, and all of a sudden you see either nobody is buying your implant, maybe it is not very good, or there are orders of thousands within the next 2 weeks, and your production is like 100 a week. So, how are you going to comply with those demand? So, that is the question to be asked. Production planning basically takes care of understanding what is the current market demand. Before you actually start manufacturing, can you understand the market demand? Is it in the number of 20s or is it in the number of 1000? I can have my manufacturing done that way, right. So, that is what the part of production planning is, and in a very feasible way. It is not like there is the demand is of 1000 and the capital which I have is just good for 200. right, then I can just produce 200. So, everything in a feasible manner, planning around that, like how can I do my manufacturing. So, typically production planning is comprised of these two terms, production and planning, so as to meet the demand forecast and maximize the product output. It centers around the 4 facts: what to produce, where to produce, how much to produce, and when to produce. So, that is a lot of planning. So, you would typically have production engineers who would think about this, right. So, design engineers, then specific prototyping engineers, research engineers, production engineers, all separate departments and separate heads, separate jobs to be done, right. So, that's what is something we have to look at as a whole. Production planning, what are the key objectives? You want to meet the objective of quality, speed, efficiency and cost. All of these 4 things have to be going fairly high, right. So, in order to meet the demand of the product effectively and maintain the balance between different production activities, you need to do the production planning. Also, production planning is necessary to have the best possible utilization of the available resources. You do not want to buy 5 machines for producing what the demand which just requires the need of 1 machine. Then you are just wasting resources and maybe the other machines will go bad. You have to spend money on the maintenance and you have spent too much, right. So, production planning is all the way around it, that they give us clearly what materials do we need, how much material do we need, how much do we need to stock, that there may be some changing market conditions that materials are coming less. Like for example, we have recently heard that sensors and several other electronic technologies are getting much more expensive and we are not getting them very easily. That is why the government of India is trying to push for building sensors and other technologies like very quickly indigenize the same, right. So, that is where the production planning has to come. Can we understand the market demands very properly from time to time? That is what a production engineer does. To operate the plant at a predetermined level of efficiency, we want to make sure that our entire office or plant, if we may call so in case of big manufacturing, is at a predetermined level of efficiency. We know this is the efficiency which we expect and we are meeting that with the right planning, right. It cannot be that we have planned for something and I forgot about electricity, the cost of electricity or cost of something else. As a production engineer, I have to be careful of all these details. To utilize production facilities to the maximum for getting the minimum operating cost and meeting delivery schedules. At the end of the day, I should be able to deliver my products to my customers very efficiently and within a timely manner. To assist workers engaged in production activities for making right and greater earnings. You want to make sure that your workers are compensated well and there are possible bonuses or other incentives for them as well, right. So, you plan your production accordingly in a way that it does not happen so that at the end of the day you have spent all your money everywhere and you are struggling to pay the salaries of your employees. That is not something which we want, right. You should have enough money in there and probably also plan for maybe in a year I will give some bonus or some minimal increments which will motivate your employees. So, to equip management for tackling any difficulty which may arise on the achieving of production target. So, there could be so many difficulties that some machine has broken down. So, these kind of farsightedness has to be there from a production engineer standpoint, that what happens if I am just working on one machine and it has broken down, then I do not have any option. My company is going to basically get into losses because the production will stop. So, can I have 2 machines, one as a backup, one there which is in a certain cost effective setting. So, there are a lot of questions to be asked when you are thinking of production planning. So, from a production planning, what are the key functions? So, you have to look at the facility location and material handling. You have to look at capacity planning. Capacity is how much is the demand and how much we are going to produce. Maybe I am planning for some exports for my medical products, right. I want to export it to the US market, but not randomly. Maybe I have received an order of let us say 50,000 or something of the implants, and I want to sell let us say 5 lakh of this in Indian setting and then 50,000 more for the exports, right. Then I have to plan it accordingly. Procedure planning. What should be the right set of procedures so that everything is happening very efficiently? There is no need for telling to the manpower that this is your job. Everything is very clear and everybody knows what they are doing, so that the entire supply chain or the entire process of manufacturing is going very smoothly from the initial part of raw material to the delivery of the product. So that is what production planning functions are, right? So it has a lot to do with human resources, hardware, equipment, capacity of facility, job design, resource allocation, manufacturing plan design, control of product quality, design service of the product, facility design. So there are so many aspects which goes around, not always just the manufacturing, right? So some of the key production planning steps include determination of target based on past experiences like budget, manpower, production capacity, collection and interpretation of information such raw materials availability. What are the new technologies in the market? Can we use a new technology which everybody is using? Maybe the standards have changed and people are adopting to the new technology. Example is electric vehicles. Like if I am just making the same kind of petrol based vehicles like for the longest time, and the technology has shifted, I have to quickly move towards electric vehicles, right? Like as a vehicle manufacturer. Very similar with the implants. Let's say there were stents which were bare metal stents, and now they are absorbable stents and several other technologies which have come in. I cannot run my market with the old age stents, right? I have to adapt to the market. So that is also part of production planning. Developing a detailed plan, deciding on the batch size, procedure, process and lead time. What is the timing in which I can deliver my definite supplies which I have gotten an order for. Putting plan into operations, rightful execution, follow up action just to make sure, controlling to correct deviations if any. If I was planning to produce like let's say thousands of this products within a 1 week framework and it is taking me 3 weeks, then my production planning has seriously gone wrong, right? This is an example of production planning where they look at the sales forecast, the financial projections, and the first sheet we are looking at the sample milestone entries. So this is basically the kind of raw materials, the amount of cost it would incur. Next is financial projection. What do I expect the projections to look like in year 1? How much is the demand supply in year 2, year 3? So let's say in year 3 I need 10,000 of these, year 4 maybe 50,000 of these. So I have to plan accordingly, right? I cannot be planning by my 500 plan which I am selling at this point or manufacturing for the next year. So that is also part of production planning. What are my key milestones? That is the third sheet. What are the key amounts or costs, right? So let's take a very quick example into the production planning. What we did, this is our live example from our lab. So this is a new technology which we came out with during the pandemic. This is known as Covlock, also got some media attention. So this is typically this is known as a ergonomic 3D printed face shield, and what this face shield typically does is it is completely 3D printed, and it's a single unit printing, and then we put a sheet on the front. And basically the idea is we wanted to make it ergonomic, means it's comfortable to wear for a very long period of time. So we wanted to build this for frontline workers, and we have donated this to quite a around 10,000 face shields to several hospitals in India during this time frame. So typically we had the step of prototype development where we designed and optimized from almost 10 plus iterations the designs happened, and we finally used 3D printing and a simple assembly where there were already grips in which the sheet would go in. Then we did, so this is the 3D printer on the left where this face shield this frame is getting printed and the sheets were brought separately. Then we did a short term and long term testing. So I had my students go around wearing this face shield, bike with them, like walk around with them and go for hours and really give me a feedback that how does it feel, is it comfortable or is it something where they're sweating or not feeling very comfortable, because we are designing this for the frontline workers, right? They should feel very comfortable with it if they are in the COVID wards or spending time there for 4 or 5 hours and so forth, right? This is where we did a beta testing to make sure that After the prototyping phase, just before the launch, we did some volunteer recruitments and we did 2 weeks of full day testing, where we wanted a set of volunteers to wear these face shields in their lab while they are working with chemicals, and kind of creating a almost pseudo hospital environment where you will have possible some exposure to viruses, or exposure to different harmful chemicals and whatnot, right? And then we got feedback collection for the product improvisation. So this is kind of a beta testing come customer high fidelity customer discovery, where we got certain improvisation aspects, like probably the number of grips to stick the sheet in were not good enough, so we increased the number of grips, or the sizing was not perfect, so we built a size which could fit all kind of settings, so that you don't feel like a headache while this is pushing on like a pair of glasses. So we did this beta testing for a while, and then finally we had to do this production planning. So this is one of my labs in which you can see a bunch of computers where the designing was done, and then you can see a row of 3D printers in between, right? That's where the 3D printing is happening. So these folks, these are all my students, so they are basically trying to now ship these face shields. So what we did was we got poly bags, and basically we had this face shield frame, one sheet, and a sheet of instruction on how to use the put the frame in, put the sheet into the frame and wear it very quickly, right? And with a nice logo and contact details if they needed some further help. So with this we did the packaging, and they put like 200 or 300 together and started shipping it to the hospitals, right? And then there were key NGO based entities who would receive it and then distribute it across the healthcare workers and frontline workers there, right? So this is the production planning, where these folks were involved in understanding that what is the number of face shields which needs to be printed on a day-to-day basis, what is the rate at which things can move, how many printers do we need, what is the delivery schedule. So everything had to be planned, right? If any design changes have to happen, they have to happen in the very initial rounds. So all these details were all planned out, and so this is where we started looking at the production planning by volume. So we had 200 this face shield frames printed in the first week of production, but the goal was still to get to 300 to 500 a week, because we wanted to produce like 10,000, right? So at a 500 per week, that's the maximum capacity which we planned or optimized based on our 3D printers. It would still take us 2 weeks for 1000, so you're looking at 20 weeks. That's quite a bit, right? So 20 weeks is basically 4 months, 4 weeks a month, so you're looking at like 5 months into the production. And it was such a in the scenario where the Delta variant was there, and it was extremely the virus was spreading like anything, and basically we wanted to go into the production mode and deliver them as soon as possible, because there were just so much need for the face shields at that point. So we wanted to enhance the production. We brought whatever we could in terms of the 3D printers and started producing. So on the right side you're looking at a box full of these 3D printed frames, and there was one person who would constantly look at the quality and make sure the ones which are bad are to be thrown out, and we keep on producing it. This is the final packaging, and this is the shipping, where they're putting bunch of these Covlock face shields packages and shipping them to the right hospitals. And this is where they have received the packages in the hospitals, and they are basically showcasing us, and these are the bags in which they have arrived, and they are wearing the face shields with the package and with the Covlock logo, and they are kind of distributing it further. And so these are some of the end users here who got really benefited from this project, and we were very thankful for all the support from the CSR funds and other funds of the companies which funded this initial project, and based on this we were able to help out people in need, right? So to conclude, production control, production planning. What is production control? it is the activity of monitoring and controlling a particular production or operation. So, this entire plan has to be controlled in a certain way. It follows the other functions of production and helps to determine the performance of an organization. So, this entire production planning, along with that comes the production control, which lets you implement the production activities into the right form.